Hi everyone. You know, if you've ever felt like you've been treated unfairly, or if someone has done you wrong and you want punishment, maybe you've heard some people say this: an eye for an eye. Seems pretty harsh, pretty brutal, but it is an old form of justice. When we think about liberty and justice, you can think, okay, what's the best way to determine right and wrong? Or what should the best punishment be? Or what's the fairest outcome? Is it just might makes right, that only the strong should rule? Or is it something more like the golden rule? Treat others the way you want to be treated. Today's lesson on Much Ado About History is about the world's first written law code, the Code of Hammurabi. Hammurabi was a king of ancient Babylon, and he ruled in the 1700s BCE, almost 4,000 years ago. Like most kings, part of his job was to administer justice, to create a set of laws, to tell people what was right and what was wrong. But that becomes a burden. That takes up a lot of a king's time. You've got many things to think about, many things to do. You can only devote so much time to court and to justice and people's petty squabbles and things like that. So a king could either spend all of his time telling everyone what to do and what was against the law and what was legal, or you could appoint a set of judges that could do this for you. But if you do that, how do you know that the judges are going to administer the law the way that the king wants them to? Hammurabi was burdened by this, but he thought he had a solution. Since he couldn't be everywhere at once in an empire as large as Babylon, he didn't have to be everywhere at once. As long as his words were everywhere at the same time, then his brand of justice could be spread throughout the empire. And how was he going to do this? He was going to use a relatively new invention to make sure that he could be everywhere all at the same time. And that invention was writing. Hammurabi created the world's first written law code. He had his scribes use the ancient text of cuneiform to write thousands and thousands of lines, laws that dealt with almost every part of ancient life: criminal law, civil law, property law, and even laws that have to do with slavery. Now, no law code can cover every single situation that might arise in life, but Hammurabi's code was meant to be a guide for right and wrong, and to help local judges far away from the king's palace figure out how they should rule. Hammurabi had his law code inscribed on these giant stone pillars called steles. The actual ones would be over 7 feet tall. Now, just the fact of it being written out showed the king's importance. Writing was so new that very few people knew how to do it. And if you were a scribe, someone that knew writing, it was almost like a mystical art. And for a king to be able to control many scribes was just a way for a king to show his power. How could just one man control all these scribes? He must be a great man. He must be a great king. But why should people believe the king's law? Why should men like Hammurabi be able to say what exactly is right and wrong? Where does his authority come from? Well, one thing Hammurabi did, if you want people to believe that you have authority, is put yourself in a picture talking to a god. On the top of each one of these stone pillars, or steles, Hammurabi had his scribes and sculptors carve in an image of himself, he's the person on the left standing, speaking with a god. And the god is Shamash, the ancient Babylonian god Shamash. Shamash is seated, and Shamash was the god of justice. And so what better way to show that you had authority, that you could speak and tell people what was right and wrong, if you had the authority of the gods? Now, Hammurabi isn't saying that he himself is a god, but just the fact that he is conversing with a god shows that he is powerful and that he has authority. Many, many, many hundreds and thousands of years later, kings were still using this idea. It's called the divine right of kings. Why does he get to rule? Why is he the king? Because the gods want him to. Hammurabi wanted to use this law code to keep his empire in line, to keep it lawful, to keep it orderly, to give people a sense of how they should live their lives and what was right and what was wrong. And he used the image of a god to show that he had the authority to do this. And he used these giant pillars, these steels, to show how much he could control the people who worked for him, all the scribes that it would take to make such a law. So he's giving us law, but he's also showing his power and authority. Times change. Ideas of what's right and what's wrong change. But what has pretty much stayed the same is that there should be a set of common law for everyone, and that law should be written and posted so that everyone knows what's expected. That is something that we can thank King Hammurabi of Babylon for doing for us. Thank you very much. Until next time on Much New About History, have a great day.